Hubert Keller, Secrets of a Chef is made possible by Cuisinart and the elite collection of food processors. 3 nested work bowls, a seal-type lid for maximum capacity use, blade lock for pouring, and a 6-in-1 adjustable slicing disc. It's the next innovation for the modern kitchen. Additional funding is provided by Santé, the magazine for restaurant professionals helping to inspire excellence and innovation in hospitality and the culinary arts. And by Jericho Estate, makers of handcrafted wines using organic farming practices.
And if you're wondering if actually eating some beef Wellington, I have to tell you, yes, absolutely. That's always our Christmas dinner when Chantal, my wife, and myself were entertaining at home, and mostly those are chefs coming over. Every year I make a beef Wellington. They're waiting year from year, actually, first of all, to be invited again, and of course to have the beef Wellington. It never goes out of style, and they really get never tired of it. So it's a great dish. I really encourage you to do it. But first of all, let me show you how to prepare it. I have a beautiful tenderloin right over here, and that's basically the part of the head of the tenderloin, and you can see how thin it gets over here. So in order that the filet cooks nice and evenly, what I'm doing here, I'm just going to fold over the tail. Now I have the consistency of the size of the loin, so now I will start on tying up that tenderloin, taking some string, just going to put a couple of nuts, as you can see, just like that. You hold it off, and put a nut right there, cut it off. It holds nicely together, and basically I'm just going down the line, just tying up the tenderloin. And here at the end, it's really important that you're tying up nicely the tail, because you can see as I folded it over, I want to make sure it really stays nice in place. So I'm pretty generous, so let's season the filet, salt and pepper. Alright. So again, pretty generous, right? You just season it, and then you can kind of roll it on the cutting board here, so I make sure I have the same amount. It's nicely coated with salt and pepper. So once I'm here now, I'm going to put some oil into my pan and make sure that pan is really nice and hot. Because the most important, what we really want, is to give that nice sear to that filet, so they're really resealing the filet. All the juices are staying inside. My oil is smoking. I'm just going to lower the filet just very nicely, just like that. The time I'm giving that really nice sear, let me work on the mushrooms. I'm actually having some shiitake mushroom. What I want to do with this shiitake mushroom, I really want to crack off the stem, as you can see, because usually the stem on shiitake mushroom is kind of firm. So I don't use it. I might use it in a stock to flavor it, but to eat it's a little on the tough side. So once I have the mushroom, I just will cut the mushroom into 4, just like that. Take the mushroom caps, cut them nice into 4. I think comes the time now I will actually flip my filet a little bit. It keeps some browning really nicely, so you can see how that beautiful golden color shows up. I want to make sure we get the fat on both sides. And now we have a perfect fit, as you can see right here. So let's start on searing off our mushroom. So I'm going to put some heat under my pan. Take a little bit of olive oil. The shiitake mushrooms are acting like little sponges, and they're really soaking up all the oil from the pan. My oil is getting hot. Let me take the mushroom, and we're going to lower the mushroom into my pan. Alright. I'm going to now, of course, season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. Now we're going to get the mushrooms going here very nicely. So I'm just going to sear them off very gently. But I think in the meantime, my filet really looks pretty nice, I think, in color here. I really want to put that filet in the oven and kind of want to pre-bake it for about 15 minutes. That's about the average at 425 degrees. And the reason actually why I pre-bake the filet, once it's wrapped into the mushroom and the puff pastry, we couldn't keep the puff pastry in the oven that much longer to cook the whole filet, otherwise the puff pastry would get too dark. So that's the circuit on the beef Wellington. Alright, so you see once they start on searing off nicely and they're drying, but they're not completely cooked, I just want to add a little touch of water into it just to steam them up a little bit. So just a little bit of water. my mushrooms are going right over here. I will chop now some shallots. So I have my shallots. I will transfer those shallots now in the working bowl and just very, very quickly chop them up. Just a couple of on and offs. All right, so let me take out the shallots and let's transfer the shallots into my pan right over here. So again, we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in there, and I will lower now the shallots into my saute pan. Okay, so we're going to start on searing up the shallots. I'm going to lower my heat a little bit, and I think my mushrooms are ready. So you see, I caramelize them lightly. And now I start on chopping all those items in my food processor. But let me quickly transfer now all those mushrooms into the working bowl, right like that. Okay. So very quickly. Just a couple of onions. We really don't want to chop them too fine. And you see it goes really fast, right? Okay, so once I'm there, and let me grab the shallots. And we're going to now lower the shallots into the bowl also. So you see everything get nicely together. I think I have a better result that way. So again, I put it in and just want to make sure now that the shiitakes and the shallots are mixed evenly. So just very quickly, and here we go, our buff Wellington. So again, you see how nice our duxelle is. It's nicely chopped, and I definitely don't want to chop it thinner than that. So now, what I'm doing with the duxelle, I just would cover up the duxelle with a plastic film. So I will refrigerate that, and then behind me, I have a duxelle which has rested, and of course chilled. I will now remove the fillets from the oven. So you can see how nice and beautiful it is. I mean, it's really just perfect. So we're gonna take it out, and now I want that to rest. So I have one in my refrigerator here, which is cold. Okay, so that's how it looks when it has rested. I'm going to remove my strings, and the reason why we're tying up the fillet is really to make sure that that fillet, when it kind of shrinks, it shrinks nicely and evenly. I show you the technique how we're going to wrap evenly that fillet into the mushroom. So that's my duxelle over here, which is chilled. So what I'm doing now, I just have like a wet cloth here, and I will wipe down the working surface and we'll cover it with some plastic film. And the reason why a little bit of water is just that my plastic film actually sticks on the table. So another little technique or a little trick here to make sure how large I want my rectangle is, first of all, I take a little measurements here, and you see I just measure tightly how my fillet, basically the diameter of my fillet, that's the size. So I know that's how my rectangle has to be, how wide. So that's a little trick. It's amazing how nicely it works. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to now spread out the mushrooms and going to create a nice rectangle. I'm going to also measure how long my fillet is. So I take a spatula, but that's about the size. So I still can bring in a little bit of the duxelle. Now comes the fun part. Of course, I'll make sure I take that string out. You don't want to put the string into your fillet, right? And I will just pattern dry my fillet on the towels, just like that. So now you take the fillet and we put it right in here. Now I show you how we're going to wrap it really nicely and even. That's usually the fun part. So let me show you how we actually lifting up the mushroom, and you see how nicely we get the mushroom directly on the fillet. So I'm going to remove it here, right? So now we do the other side. And again, you can see how now really nicely we're getting the mushrooms around our fillet. So that's the secret of a chef right there in the plastic film. Take that plastic over it, right? And we're having kind of a nice, even the mushroom all around. So quickly I want to tie up the edges of my plastic. And basically half of the work is done by now. Once you have that in the plastic, so I will transfer that now delicately on my plate here, and I will refrigerate that now, like I said, from anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes up to 1 day. Let's start with the puff pastry. You don't want to actually lay out the puff pastry on the table and start unwrapping the filet, because you're going to have a hard time lifting the filet back on your tray. So remember, we put it down. Now comes the time with some egg wash. We're going to generously brush our puff pastry with the egg wash. Egg wash is just egg yolk with a little bit of water inside. Now let's get my other piece of puff pastry ready. Let's just put a little flour on the table here. So now let's get the filet out of the refrigerator. Let's transfer to the cutting board. Okay, so once I have that, I will now just cut off the ends here. Here it is. So now we're just going to unroll it. Okay, we're just going to roll it a little bit on that spatula, just like that. We take the plastic film off, and very nice and gently, let's just move it over. So here it is. So in order to transfer the puff pastry, I fold it in half, and then we're just going to start on wrapping it up so nicely. So now what I'm doing here is I'm adding some egg wash over it, and I'll show you another little trick how to actually decorate and garnish that filet. So what the egg wash actually does, it's really, one part is to glue the dough together. The other part, of course, is to have that beautiful, nice golden brown color even all around your Wellington. Now that I have that one ready, let me show you a little trick how I'm actually cutting the dough around, and we'll put a little design in. So again, I will keep about an inch and a half of dough all around, because after the dough, everything will be, you will be able to eat everything. So now nicely and delicately, I'm removing the excess of dough. So in order to decorate it, I'm just pulling down this nice little design, and again, you just push the dough out, go in with a fork, because remember, you really want to present that to your friend on the table, right, as we speak. Okay, so now we have a little bit excess of dough here. I want to use some of that dough. I will reuse a little bit of egg wash and just garnish the top a little bit. So let me just brush that with egg wash. I will now take the fork and then just put some little lines into my filet, just like that. Just sliding down. As you can see, I do the same thing on this side. That's really purely part of decoration, right? Something, once you went through all that trouble on the wrapping it nicely, of course you want to have a little bit of fun and garnish that. So what I can do also with a little fluted cutter here, I'm just going to cut little moons or half moons. So let's just cut these little guys down, and I'm going to display those directly on my Wellington. So again, here comes the fun part, and definitely later on when it comes out of the oven, you will see that that little design that we're just putting on, it's definitely worthwhile. And we put it in at 375 for about 20-25 minutes, and you will be seeing it's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. Well, let me see how our filet Wellington is doing in here. Oh wow, I think it was really worth with the egg wash and those little stars and those little half moons on there. You can see how beautiful our Wellington is. Look at that. It really looks great. So now it's time to enjoy it. So let's go over here. It's really beautiful. So let's transfer that on the cutting board. Bring it over here. I want to bite into that right away. So look how beautiful the filet Wellington is. I think the way it's actually cooked is really to perfection. And you can see the mushroom, how nice and even they're really around the dough. And once you're going to bite into it, it's going to be so juicy. I don't think it needs much more So stay with me because I have more coming up. I have a beautiful vegetable stew that's going to be glazed, and then also as a bonus, basically, I have a gratin dauphinois, which is like a potato gratin with some cream, just the way we like it in France.